Be standing here alone, so I would like to invite everybody. Like I want to invite my producer David Christensen from the National Film Board. This film wouldn't have been possible without their funding, and all the if we can coax the participants onto this. This is long.
Miss Lowe, you should have your own TV show.
And Julia, Mr. Tosi, please. And Ken.
We'd like to know where to get that
Mark Brockington, Paige and Mark Brockington. It's the first time you've seen it. It's the first time you've seen it.
A lot more, especially when the condos are coming in, which I see, it's overtaking and killing all the, why don't they go to some residential areas? Some residential, which are high-rise, but leave us alone. It's lost.
Yeah, there's 13 voices here.
I don't know what else to say.
Is there anybody else here from the film? Oh, Patrick, and the most integral people is Michael Brockington. Can you please come up, because documentary is all about editing, and he did such an amazing job, and an amazing DP cinematographer, Patrick. And is
audience.
Is are all the subjects? Is Bob? Are you here?
We have 15 or 20 minutes. He's going to give us a 2-minute. If you have questions or anything you want to say, I would say if you have a question, if you could keep it a bit short, because we are really bad at paraphrasing. So if you say a long question, it's just, I'm just going to have to make it 3 words because I have no memory. But a question for Julia, for anyone besides how grateful we are that you agreed to be in this beautiful film. Yes.
I have 2 questions. First is, what made you choose to film that? And second is like, because I can speak Mandarin, but all I hear is Cantonese, so like, I wonder why you also choose to film a part about that.
2 questions is for Julia, what made her decide to make this film and to film everyone in it? And the second one is that the audience member only heard Cantonese, but she speaks Mandarin, and what happened?
Okay. I actually, in the course of filming, these wonderful people ended up in the film, but we actually filmed twice as many people. So basically, me and my researcher Teresa spent about 6 months to a year walking the streets and getting to know people. And a lot of doors were closing on us because they didn't understand the process of filmmaking, and they don't want us to affect their livelihood, which makes perfect sense. And I guess the turning point was when we met Daniel, and he's a security guard, and he's like the ambassador of Chinatown. He sort of gave us this seal of approval, and we were able to follow him, patrolling the streets. So that was how and they're like, they're okay, you should trust them. So he got us to meet the community and all the people, and so it's and these people were kind enough to allow us to film, you know, for a very long period of time. And also in terms of Mandarin, we didn't run into very many Mandarin speakers because I think Chinatown originally was Cantonese and Toisanese. Free speaks Mandarin. Yeah, we just didn't encounter very many Mandarin speaking people, and that's why.
I thought there was someone at the back. Do you have a question? Yeah. If you say it really loud, I won't have to annoy people by paraphrasing it, but I have to paraphrase it because otherwise people get mad.
So for Julia, I noticed that you did a lot of voiceover narration. Can you give a reason why you chose that as kind of your editing choice?
You hear that, right? The question for Julia was that there was a voiceover narration in the film, and I was clearly a documentary fan and student, and why you chose to do that.
Well, I thought it was the most succinct way of getting to know the people because we had a limited number of minutes and we have a dozen people, so it was really a shorthand. And I also didn't want to have like a voiceover narration because, you know, it's a very nuanced, and I didn't want to be so obvious about the choice. So I'm just presenting 13 different viewpoints, and I wanted the audience is not a prescriptive film, and I wanted the audience to draw their own conclusions. And yeah, so the reason with the voiceover narration was just a succinct way of getting to know this many number of subjects in the film.
Yes. Yes, right in the middle.
Julia, before you, the first 6 minutes before the film started, there were some pictures of the Fantasia. When was that filmed?
The question was, in the first 6 minutes of the film, like the visual introduction, there were pictures of the Fantasia, and when was that filmed?
Are you talking about the Contagious theater?
That's right.
You mean the short film that preceded? I'm sorry, I don't think is the filmmaker here?
Is Ross here?
Ross, when was that filmed? Where you are?
Sorry, what's the question? Sorry.
When you filmed the theater?
Well, we used still photographs from the past, and we filmed like what's left of it now, which is basically a construction site.
I thought it was a beautiful choice, a pairing to put together with things that change and the love for them, and yet they still change.
Can we bring Ross up too?
Absolutely. It was a beautiful film. Questions for either anyone? Would you like to hear from anyone who was in the film? Do you want to join Mrs. Lowe's singing? Yes?
Okay, so I have a question. I have a lot of feelings after watching this film. It's amazing, so thank you, and seeing everyone's kind of perspective. I'm guessing question would be like what's happening with Chinatown now, or what you see the future in terms of being able to respect and honor the history and the current residents of like the Chinatown community, as well as trying to, I think one of the folks said in their interview, like how do you bring in the youth who had left Chinatown to come back and kind of like bring this new energy or foot traffic, because they're like business is bad, but then at the same time like there's this balance. Sorry, this might be hard to concise, but yeah, I don't know, I'm feeling kind of almost angry of just like what's happening to Chinatown, where are these people gonna go? Like the lady who knitted, and we don't know her story. What's happened to her? Like where are these people gonna go? Are these buildings taken down already? Like there's that apartment building that has how many apartments, and where are those folks gonna go?
Did you hear that over there?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I do have one that says, like, what's happening now? See, that's how mean I am.
I mean, that's a good question. I think there's a concern. I think Melissa Fong is here with her Center A. You know, there's a concerted effort. The youth are coming back in. There's Hua Foundation. So there are attempts to, I think, making this documentary, a lot of people free. We all talked about like change. Like I don't think a lot of people are opposed to change, but it's like mindful change. It's like respecting, and so we have people like like, Center A, we have, so we have people, I know we have Bao A, Tan is coming in as a second generation Chinese Canadian, so there's attempts to preserve and, but, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I asked the subjects if anybody has a comment.
Would anyone like the mic to speak to that question? Like what they think is happening to some of the buildings are being preserved, some are being torn down for condos, and some people are moving to Richmond, I think you said, Julia?
Yes, some shops have moved to Richmond, yes.
Or if you want to speak, someone could translate.
Oh, come on, you guys.
I saw you,
So what's the question? Like, I guess what's happening in Chinatown now?
What's happened to the people, or what's going to happen to the people?
I think everybody just kind of just trying their best to go about their own business, and no one's opposed to change. We all kind of like the change, but I personally think it's cool when you're able to kind of just pay homage to the culture and the history. I mean, I spent $5 to make that little rubber ducky thing, and just that. I think just something like that would be cool. And there's 2 buildings coming up on Main Street. I think personally, if I was an architect, I would take that opportunity to showcase, hey, this is a different building. This is a really special building that pays homage or takes design from, like, say, an old Shanghai building. But we don't see enough of that. We don't see enough of the new taking advantage of the goodness of the history and the heritage. So that's what I see, and I'm sure a lot of people kind of feel the same way.
And if you're talking about specific people, I know that the herbalists, they just told me last week that they sold the building, so I don't know how long they're getting for 10 years, and it finally sold. So they know their time there is limited. Which I think Mrs. Lahi is here.
She's there.
She's here. And in terms of Miss Lowe, like the knitting hat lady and the newspaper vendor, they both live in social assistance, like housing, so they have a place. And then everybody is here, so yeah.
What a huge crew. And I think you told me in Toronto, in the Toronto screening in the spring, the woman who was selling newspapers had retired, and now she's out of retirement. It was boring.
She retired at 92, and then over the summer, I was so thrilled to see her back. And so she came out of retirement at 93. And I asked her to come today. She said, no, I'm busy.
5 in the morning.
She had her stoop at 5:30 in the morning. So, but yeah. But I understand the woman in the bag. Like, I understand your feelings. Like, I made this film. It was an emotional reaction to what I was seeing. And I don't have all the answers. Like, the film doesn't have all the answers. But I'm presenting a community that's really important and seeing why this community is important. You see Miss Lowe, and she's, she doesn't leave the radius of, Chinatown, right? And you see this really strong sense of community, and yes, we need to find a way to preserve it and respect it, and so yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
I'd like to ask this in my language. I'm presuming the living interactive gallery owner can help translate. 你覺得套戲點樣，同埋你覺得溫哥華嘅改變係點樣？So I asked, what did you think of the film, and what did you think of changes in Vancouver?
而家好好啊，唐人街。好多人誒，即係你有咩事幹問下佢，人哋講佢聽啊，照顧你啊咁樣，即係好似一個大家庭咁樣，即係冇話唔理你咁樣啊。
To sum it up, she's just saying it's like one big family in Chinatown, like a community, right?
We have time for 2 more questions. So is there anyone at the back I haven't seen because I can see
Over
people?
here.
Okay, yell it.
Please, I want to ask to the director of Broken Palace, why did you choose that subject of movie theater?
To this director of Broken Palace, why did he choose the subject of the film, the cinema?
Thank you for that question. First, I just want to very selfishly thank Julia. It's been an honor for our humble little film, Broken Palace, to play with your film. It's been a great honor for us, and you've been very gracious to our film. And I just want to, let's give a big hand for Julia. She's been phenomenal. We've been texting back and forth as we found that our films are inextricably connected, and she's been very gracious, and we're very proud to share our film Broken Palace with such a great documentary by her. So what was the question? No, I know what the question was. Basically, very similar to what's going on in Chinatown, I suppose, is probably one of the reasons our films were put together was all these old heritage movie theaters, as you can see by the film, they're basically disappearing very fast, whether it's real estate reasons or whatever. So that was the kind of call to arms. I actually have a job where I drove by the ridge every day, and I could see it systematically being destroyed, and I kind of got this idea like, wow, you know, I should start documenting this because this is not gonna, this will never be around anymore. So I started getting the idea to do that with the ridge, and then it had the bigger picture of like all these other films, like the theaters like the Hollywood, and subsequent other theaters, but I think this is a universal issue about heritage buildings in general that are disappearing very fast, and I think it's very important that we maintain our heritage, and you're never going to understand what it's like in the present and the future unless you stay true to what's in the past, and so that's why I think it's very important that we remember and try to preserve heritage movie theaters, because it's something that we all share together as a community, and it brings us together as a tribe, and I think that's important.
Since we have time for one more question, I just want to say before we do the question, I know, okay, good, gotcha. Before I take the question, I want to tell you, please vote for this film. Outside on the shelf are both films. There's ballots. You can fill out the name, say you love it, the best you've ever seen, and put it in the ballot box down on the first floor, because it's an Audience Choice Award, which is a filmmaker's special award that you give to them. And secondly, the films are playing twice more, so don't leave before we get a chance to say when they're both playing again. Okay, I had to say that because you can rush off. Yes?
Hi, Julia. Thanks for the film. Wonderful film. Enjoyed it very much. I just wanted to ask you, I know that you have access to one of the most storied Chinatown organizations. I know your father belongs to it, Chinatowns. And I noticed that it was nowhere in the film. Is there a reason?
Could you hear that at the back?
Yes.
Okay.
My parents did not want to participate in any way, shape, or form. And so it was just a matter of accessing, you know, and Mr. Su was very kind to allow us to film. It was very hard to access a lot of places, let's put it that way. So, yeah.
The reason I asked that is I'm just wondering, in old Chinatown, is it possible, which you've shown it is, but I was just thinking that the spiritual assessments of it and one loom, of which, you know, your father's society is named after, and one of the great heroes of Cantonese opera and all that, which would pull in the spiritual assessments of what the old Oakhill and all that. So that's why I asked if there was a particular reason to omit it, but I guess getting access is hard, and that would be a good reason to.
Well, you know, it was really about the subjects, so it's almost following their stories, right? So, yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably more than one film, and I'm very sorry if I annoyed you by paraphrasing, but they fire me if you can't hear it at the back. So my apologies if that was annoying. The film is playing twice more, Julia. Do you want to say when they're both playing
sold out
together?
October 3rd, but I think there might be tickets still left on October 1st. And we're going to go for a drink at the Kiefer Bar, so
You're all invited.
it's just like 2 blocks away.
And I just think another round of applause for Julia.